Hello,
Hello,
hi
everyone who
everyone.
joined us. Yes, go ahead. I'll start getting people in as you make a start, Amnisha.
Anjan is doing that, Abhi, so it's fine.
Okay, no
Yeah,
worries. Go ahead.
yeah. I'll just share some of the housekeeping rules. Yeah. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's session. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the location that you have joined us in. And before we start the session, you can grab your tea or coffee, your favorite beverage, settle in, and we can talk about something that impacts us all today. Food, of course, and of course, how we can build a better future around it. And so let's go ahead and start today's session. Some housekeeping rules. You can see the chat box is off right now, but we will use the Q&A section to interact with each other. And if you want, you can directly privately message us for any concern. The session will be recorded today, as there will be participants who are unable to make today. We will be sharing the session, a recording of the session with them. And with that said, we'll get started. Please be respectful towards each other during the session, and of course in the chat box. With that said, I'll invite Neeti to introduce us with the moderator of today's session. Over to you, Neeti.
Just before that, I see Asma has her hand up.
Asma has. Is it?
I thought I saw Asma
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
I'll
there. She
unmute
just needs to
her.
be let in.
Yes.
Okay, no worries. Over to you, Nikki, and then we'll
Well,
make
I,
a start.
I, I've been muted. That's the problem. Muted and my camera off. I couldn't unmute myself.
Now it is unmuted, Asma, and camera is allowed now.
Thank you for noticing that.
Good to see you.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Hi, very well.
Fantastic.
Neeti,
Over to you,
would you like
Neeti,
to?
and we'll get started. And of course, you are on mute, Neeti.
Sorry for that. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Today's session is moderated by Abdi Hassan, Country Director for the British Council in Romania and Bulgaria. Abdi has led British Council teams across 3 continents from the Middle East to North Africa and Europe, and says that food and people are what he remembers most from every country he has worked in. Cooking is the part of his DNA. He is a passionate home cook who believes food, much like cultures, bring people together and tell the stories that connect us all. He is also a strong advocate for leadership, equality, diversity, and cultural relations. And you can follow his reflections and posts on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn is shared. The link to that is shared in the chat. Welcome, Abdi, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Neeti. Good to see you all. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be with you here today. And welcome to this conversation on World Food Day 2025, Building a Food Secure Future. I'm joining you today from Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. And as Neeti said, I've always loved food. My grandmother taught me that every dish tells a story of where we came from, who we share it with. And also, as been mentioned, the thing that I always look for whenever I move to a new country is food, because food explains cultures, people, and connections. Now, today, we'll explore how food, creativity, and community can help us waste less and live more sustainably. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the UN Food Agriculture Organization, a reminder of how vital collaboration is in creating a fairer, more resilient food system. This event, which is really close to my heart, is also hosted by the British Council Digital Library, connecting over 120,000 members across 30 countries and expanding I have to say, the British Council Digital Library is one of my all-time favorite British Council products. Please don't tell others. As part of today's, we are relaunching Food and Sustainability Collection, a space full of books and ideas to inspire more sustainable living. And Anisha will kindly share the link to that in the chat section. And particularly, we have a treat for all of you, both who are here live with us and also will be watching this recording. Asma Khan's new book, Monsoon, is available right now in the digital library for the British Council. So you can go, explore, experiment, but after this session. So let's meet our panelists, which I'm really honored to have. Asma Khan, British Indian chef, restaurateur, and an activist, founder of Darjeeling Express, famous for its all-woman kitchen, named one of Time's 100 most influential people, chef, advocate for the UN World Programme, author of Monsoon, celebrating home cooking, culture, and empowerment through food. And then, of course, the wonderful Shaun Kenworthy, celebrated British chef and culinary strategist, over 2 decades shaping India's food scene, has led more than 100 hospitality projects, mentoring hundreds of young chefs, champion of fresh, seasonal, honest cooking, built on respect for every ingredient. And as we've just discovered, as we get into this call today, a particular fan of Kolkata curry, which we will talk about in a moment as well. Welcome to both of you. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, let's go back and where it's all started from, the origin of both Asma and Shaun. So what's the first dish that made you fall in love with food from your childhood, and who cooked it? And let me start with you, Asma.
What I remember is paratha, which was something that I still love, and it is still something that I'm very passionate about. But I always do remember that there was sugar sprinkled on the paratha. So the sugar would melt, and the location as well. That's my first memory of sitting and eating paratha on a balcony on Elliot Road, which is a very busy road in Calcutta, where a lot of Anglo-Indians would live. And there used to be a tram that used to run below. I remember the sound of the tram. I remember the paratha. And I remember crows who used to watch us eat when we sat on the balcony.
Oh, wonderful. Did you have the paratha with hot chai?
No, I think as a child, it was not given to us. As we grew
Okay.
older, we would dip it in. But we used to just get paratha on its own with sugar,
Yeah.
sprinkled on top.
Paratha and chai is one of my favorite snacks.
It
on
still is,
breakfast.
but in childhood, in fact, I didn't give my children paratha and chai till they were much older and less likely to burn themselves.
What about you, Shaun? Where it's all started for you?
So, so I grew up in the UK. I grew up in a little town called Stalybridge, little old working class mill town, I guess, really. My food stories always go back to my grandmother, really. I mean, she was a great cook, I guess. I think she was born in about 1905 or something. So she'd kind of she'd learned to cook the old school way, I guess. So lots of really good stews, and she was a good stews, good roasts. I always remember my grandmother's like pea and ham soup that would be cooking on the stove for like 24 hours overnight. Nice big ham hock in there and some dried peas, a whole carrot, a whole onion. I mean, it's just so tasty, so delicious, but really just very simple, I guess, working class kind of like food, really, and a bit of a treat. I mean, if I ate it today, I'd think it was a treat for sure.
Absolutely. And in the part of the world where I am, winter started, so stew is the perfect complement of a cold day. Now, going to the topic of today's discussion, which is around food security, but particularly we will be focusing on food waste as well. Globally, around the world, I was reading a statistics that a third of all food that is produced is uneaten, either buried, wasted somewhere. Where do you see the biggest points of waste as chefs and as, of course, cooks and people who are in touch with food a lot more than most? And how much of it comes down to habits rather than systems? And again, let me start with you, Asma.
I think everybody is to blame. The system is broken. And starting from governments to households, where, if you actually asked somebody that would you bin 5 pounds into the bin every day, would that be okay? They'd say no. But that's the kind of value of food that is binned because it's past the sell by date, that they think is past the sell by date, or they've forgotten about something, or they bought more than they can actually cook, that they haven't thought about the fact that I'm going on this trip, I should not be buying this because it's going to go off in my fridge. Uh, and completely and buying what is trendy and then ignoring it. And this kind of thing, so you buy an entire cauliflower, but you plan to only cook something with half. You don't intend to actually repurpose the other half. There is there is nothing in this entire food system that is actually talking about how you can actually be more careful with food and not to waste. Then there is this whole, we've been sold the idea of the perfect vegetable. And I'm so
Mm,
heartbroken now when I see this in India, where you still have people going out to bazaars and shopping, but the super elite are now getting their fruits and vegetables shipped in, flown in, avocados from Australia, strawberries that are coming from Singapore. It's just frightening that they are getting things from outside. You never got in when I grew up in India in the 80s, you only got what was local. You got what was seasonal. But everybody's idea now of being a global citizen is food on tap. Whatever is not in season is irrelevant because it's in season somewhere else. It's going to be flown down. There's a price tag to it. It doesn't matter about the carbon footprint. So I think everybody is to blame. I think we have broken as a society. It really is to do with how we also see community, how we see farmers, and my biggest problem is what we see is water. We use water as our right. We turn the water tap on in the West without thinking about those, especially girls in Africa and India, especially who are walking barefoot through the dust to get water. Water is the life source for food. So we are wasting the most precious resource that we cannot create by our absolute arrogance of thinking we have the right to eat what we want when we want.
I really totally agree, and it resonates with me, particularly about water, having lived in different parts of Africa and seeing how difficult is it to access water for some communities. Shaun, in the previous answer, you described a hearty, quintessentially British, available in that vicinity type of a dish from your memory. How does this contrast with the current availability, waste, and what Asma described so eloquently?
So I guess I'm incredibly blessed in lots of ways. I live in this developing country, if you like. So we don't necessarily have all the supermarket flash. Realistically, I think, and particularly in Calcutta where I live, we still have local bazaars. Most people still go to a local bazaar to buy their fresh, flapping around in a bucket fish. You buy a fresh chicken still. But obviously, slowly but surely, supermarkets are creeping in. We have an app now. Well, we have two or three apps called the one that almost everybody uses constantly is an app called Blinkit. So if you wake up in the morning and you realize you don't have any milk, you just order some milk, and within 7 or 8 minutes, it comes to your house, gets delivered to you. And I guess post-COVID, people are doing almost all of their shopping just on these Blinkit apps, and everything arrives within 5 minutes. So I guess that's the main change, really. Like say, supermarkets are getting better. We have better quality vegetables and fish in supermarkets, but that's still a very slow process, I think. I'm forever saying to people, I mean, like praying to people, please use these bazaars as much as you can, because at some point in time, they're on big chunks of really expensive real estate that somebody's going to want to take away and use for something else, really. And we will be stuck with the supermarket culture, and we'll be in a situation where, like in the UK, like Asma said, you buy a cucumber in a plastic wrapping and it will have a sell by date on it, and most people will throw it away once the sell by date's gone, whether it's it probably hasn't changed at all since the day you bought it. So I guess to a certain extent, particularly in Calcutta, we're still quite lucky with that as of now.
I'm glad. I'm glad, and I love how other people around the world are not really bothered by how fruit and vegetable look like. I mean, it's not a beauty pageant for them. It's more of how we can the nutritional value of it.
Yeah, so I go to the soup. I mean, I go to my local market, and fruits look like fruits. They taste and smell like fruits most of the time. They look like vegetables that have been dug out of the ground. I mean, it's quite civilized, really, for most of that.
But for us in the West, it is absolutely horrendous. Everything is pre-packaged, packaged. And what is not pre-packaged, and especially, if it's organic or it's come from regenerative farmer, it comes with such a huge price tag. It's a two-tier system because when you want organic anything where it has been grown without pesticides or it is grown, or you can name a farm, it's only the elite. Average people cannot, the poor definitely cannot. I remember the first time I went to England and my visit to a Cambridge supermarket, every banana had a sticker on it. This completely blew my mind that someone, because I grew up in India, not imagining that you could own something there's something so horrendous that someone sat and put a sticker on every banana in a bunch. I didn't even fully understand. I was 21. I just moved to think I didn't understand food systems. But that itself made me feel that this is really weird. It almost felt not clean that this was owned by something. Even though I bought it, the fact that someone's name was there, the sticker was there of some company upset me. Our systems need to change. And the thing is that it is not going to change from bottom up. the the real consumers of a lot of farming that is happening in the world is not local, where the maximum damage is happening. Industrial size, farming is being farmed and produce is being grown for the West. We need to start. We need responsibility in the West. We need to start. We need to help our farmers in our own country. British farmers don't get any support. After EU, I mean, it's just gone. And we need to also then help all the way down. Let's start with the farmers. Let's start with land. Let's start with water. Then we can, really talk about food, because without land and water, food cannot grow. So we need to have a more holistic view of everything.
Absolutely. Farmers, land, water, mean food. That's a really great summary. To our audience, we will have a moment for questions, comments later. So bear with us. Coming
Abdi,
to
before I just wanted to interrupt you one moment. I'm
yes.
sure that audience is not getting the chat section properly, where they can post the questions. So I just want to mention once more that the question answer, the Q&A section where I'm posting the comments, you will be having a chance to post your questions, comments there. If you click on chat option, you will see the chat option is disabled. But if you go to Q&A section, you will be able to post your comments and questions there. Thank you. Over to you, Abdi.
Thank you very much, Anisha. And you can find the Q&A section on the top banner of Teams if it's configured as it's configured for me. I'm really excited about Monsoon, Asma. And I wanted you to take us through a journey of where did the idea come from? How did it come to being? And if I could add another dimension to it, could you highlight one or two recipes that people should go and try it in the next 2, 3 days as they download it from the British Digital Library or the British Council Digital Library?
Thank you for asking about my book. I named it, of course, after the best season in where I grew up, which is Calcutta. But it really is about seasonality. The book is divided into 6 chapters. Bengalis get this right. One season doesn't slam into the other. You have 6 seasons. This is in between season. There is nobody who understands seasons as beautifully as Bengalis. Their entire diet changes by season. And I think that I was so blessed to grow up in Calcutta. This is what connects Shaun and me at a very deep level. I was born there and I left it and I yearned for Calcutta. And Shaun was born in England, has gone back to Calcutta. He's been there for over 2 decades. Every time I see him, I smile because I feel he's there where I want to be, where my heart is always going to be there. So Monsoon really celebrates seasonality, also about how we eat. We don't eat meat and 2 veg. Even if it is a simple meal, a rice and a dal and a fried aubergine or eggplant, something crunchy, a little bit of a dash of lime, little bit of chilies, fresh chilies. Simplicity is really about the core of how we eat. And Monsoon I don't want to use the word simple because I think the fact that you can cook, that you can eat is a privilege. Cooking also is a privilege because you have ingredients. You have ingredients in front of you that you can cook. So I've approached this with a huge amount of almost like seeing food as sacred, which is the core of so many of our heritage and culture, where we didn't see food as our right, but we were understood the significance of food. And so it's a book I've loved writing. It has some really kind of interesting recipes. So you talked about 2 recipes. I would have to say omelette curry. Bengalis don't use eggs as it's not a breakfast thing. Bengalis know how to eat eggs all the time. So this is an omelette curry. It's great if your kids are just learning how to cook because everybody can make shift with an omelette. As long as the omelette is cooked, you can add the gravy. It's really about getting the gravy through. And I think that the other thing that I love is cholar dal. It's a kind of very Bengali lentil, but it's a very different. There's something so healing about cholar dal. So do try that if you can get this particular kind of lentil wherever you are. Try making it. It's so it really it feels rooted to the earth somehow, just in the flavors and the fragrance. So those are my 2 suggestions.
Thank you very much. I love omelets, and making an omelet with my 2 small children is one of the both messiest and most wonderful things that one can do. Um, Shaun, Asma described you really wonderfully from this culinary journey, going from meat and 2 veg to the explosion of spices, color, vegetables of India. How has that been for you?
Well, it's certainly brought on quite complicated IBS over the years, but we'll not go into that, I don't think. I mean, I just eat everything all the time, really. I mean, maybe a little bit less these days. I've always been a big fan of street food, which I'm starting to eat less and less of. My stomach just doesn't allow me so much anymore. But talking about monsoon, we're just at the end of monsoon in Calcutta. It just rained for 2 hours, and we're knee deep in water again today. So memories of monsoon while I'm living it are not necessarily always so colourful as Asma makes it sound. And an interesting thing about the Bengalis also, they'll always put duck eggs much before chicken eggs when it comes to eating them. A good Bengali, let's say, from a good Bengali family. They love a good duck egg. Yes, I mean, I'm a very open-minded character, really. I'll fit in anywhere, I think. But I don't know. I felt as though, I don't know. I think my wife will always say, you obviously had a calling to come here. And I think you had a calling to come here and not to meet me first, but to fall in love with Calcutta. My wife is Bengali. And she'll always say she'll say to anybody, he's much more in love with the city and its food than me, which could be a bit condemning.
It's true. It's true.
She's beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I really have this deep connection with the city, really. It's history. So many layers of history, so many layers of food history in the city that are really unwritten, actually. I mean, this is I'm going off topic of conversation here, but I'm so kind of like, I can't imagine living anywhere else, actually. I mean, the food's wonderful, whether it be, I mean, I love Bengali food, as I'm bound to. I'm a good Jamai of the city, which is like the son-in-law, if you like. And I think there's so many different layers of flavor in Bengali food, much more than anywhere else in the country. So many influences that came and went in Bengal, going back 500 or 600 years, and many people that came and went and left a mark on this city. Um, so yeah, so that's the connection between me and Asma.
And his
I'll
wife,
stay
we
with
all
you.
grateful for his wife because she's wonderful. She's this sparkling thing. She just tolerates Sean's kind of complete passion with food, and it's just the city is better because we have someone like him. Because I think that sometimes you need someone else to look at it from a different eye to make us realize what we have, which is so precious.
So I'm certainly
Absolutely.
not a traditionalist when it comes to cooking in any sense, really. I mean, I like to play around with flavors. I like to explore. I love to eat traditional food. I love cooking traditional food, but I feel as a chef, I need to keep pushing. I think that's my job, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll stay with you, but before that, just to say to our audiences, in the next 5 or 10 minutes, I would throw it out to and pick up some questions from the Q&A section, as Arnisha is looking at that. But Sean, you describe this uh, duality in heritage, in identity, if I may, between the two countries. I have a similar duality between heritage of Somalia, East Africa, and the UK. Now, of course, you grew up in the UK, you spent most of your time in Calcutta now. If I were to say, what is the one thing that the UK can learn from the food practices of India? And what is the one thing that India can learn from the UK? What would that be?
So I obviously don't want to get involved in what's been and gone with the British and India in the past. But obviously there's this incredible cuisine in India, which again me and Asma discussed at length also, an Anglo-Indian cuisine really, which really is this kind of like great joint effort of, let's say, those first ladies that came to India from the West, found some ingredients, wanted a flavor of home, and they worked with their own cooks to make things that tasted similar, but they were never going to be similar. And over the years, obviously, a Bengali cook and or a lady of a Bengali household and all these foreigners that lived in this city, they worked together and they produced completely brand new things, really. And there's so many similarities. In fact, I've just finished writing a book actually, which hopefully will be out the beginning of December. And it's kind of like part bio, really, part my 20 odd years living here. But there's so many kind of like um, anecdotes about what the British and particularly the Bengalis have in common, really. I mean, there's this great kind of like, so if there's many people watching this from the UK, things like Branston pickle, Piccadilly, HP sauce, Worcestershire sauce, they all originate from Bengal in some shape or form. And they're something that are part of British day-to-day kind of like supermarket shelves. And nobody really knows any of these stories, but I mean, and that's just like brushing the surface, really. I think there's not necessarily anything to take away. Mango chutney is almost as British as as fish and chips, I think, these days. I mean, there's so many things that the British have because of India that I'd love to tell that story to the British, and I'm sure I will at some point.
Out of today's conversation, I have never thought I would discover HP sauce was so international.
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a Bengali.
So
It's tamarind chutney
Oh, of
origin.
yes,
course. When
really.
you put it that way, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I mean, it originates from really Worcestershire sauce, which Liam Perrins was the pharmacy where it was first made I mean, that's a very well documented recipe. The recipe went from East Bengal originally, has anchovies in it, etc. And pretty much every steak sauce in the world is some sort of derivative of that original Liam Perrins Worcestershire sauce somewhere.
Didn't know that. That's fantastic. Um, Let me go back to Asma. And of course, Asma, you are not just an ordinary chef. As I was reading some of your bios and some of the work you've done, and the leadership, the pioneering of fantastic causes. What does good leadership look like in the environment of the kitchen? So, of course, kitchens rely on precision, pressure, teamwork. What are the leadership lessons that apply and you've learned from your environment as a chef that could apply to other areas of work, to other roles, people like me and other colleagues and other people who are watching this?
I think the most important thing that for me, a good leader has to be humble. Humility is very important. You have so many CEOs coming across as if they built a product or a something completely on their own, disregarding the team. You stand on the shoulders of giants. And I think that that is something that so many leaders don't understand or don't want to communicate. And this arrogance of your position means that you feel entitled to demean and to undermine other people. I think the most powerful thing that we can have is a collective. That is what our kitchen is. Our kitchen is a collective. We work in a collaborative way. This comes from, African and Asian kitchens where all the women would get
Mm.
together, whether it was grinding the maize or piecing the masala. If you went into places where the women would go together to gather water or to make bread, at this being together with other people doing similar activities built this whole idea of food being something of the collective and of to be shared. And there was joy. There wasn't anger. No one was barking orders down. There wasn't the brigade, ranking system where someone superior was shouting down to someone inferior as they saw it. And I think that for me, I think we have completely failed totally to have good leaders in the kitchen. There are very few people, I mean, Shaun is one of them who I've seen how well he treats his team, but there are very, very few people who are compassionate and understand what it is to be a leader in the kitchen. If you look at the top 50 of everywhere, most of those people are people who are unpleasant and toxic in the kitchen. And I know this as a fact. And I've said it and I have named people. And as a lawyer, I know, especially in England, the laws are great. You can be sued very easily, but there's no one who can challenge the fact because there's enough evidence. But no one wants to take on these people. Everybody worships on the altar of these demagogues, these toxic people, because they're seen as powerful and creative. You can be powerful and creative. You do not need to be nasty and horrible. But so I think that unfortunately, leadership and hospitality are two different things right now. I don't know when, never the twain shall meet. I feel that because I think that this is something that is very difficult. There are very few people willing to raise this because everyone is afraid about losing their privilege. So they will not challenge it. It took Hollywood forever for the Me Too movement. And that is, uh, shows really how difficult it is when people feel they will lose a role or lose opportunity or lose funding. They will not talk about it. So I'm sorry to come across with such a depressive, especially after all this
No.
joy that we've been talking about Calcutta. But the reality is that it is not an easy place to work. But it can change. There are young people. I think the youth of the future are going to save us for everything, from how they look after the planet to their political views to their empathy for the deprived and, the actual activism of the young gives me hope.
They are certainly our only hope to correct our mistakes. Shaun, so you've trained hundreds of young chefs, and you led projects and, of course, celebrated chef. How do you create that inclusive leadership in the kitchen? That leadership that Asma described you with as being an authentic, great leader.
So I'm kind of like difficult, really. So I'll always say I'm a cook first, mentally. I love to cook. I cook every day. If I'm if I'm in Calcutta and I'm at home, I cook at home every day. I still love food, but I also love the creative aspect of food, and that's why I work on so many multiple projects also, and with so many multiple teams. And if you do the job that I kind of like do, where sometimes I walk into a situation with a brand new team, and I know that Asma does it as well, that I have to say to them, okay, we've got an event today, like we need to work towards this. How we're gonna where we're gonna start. So you can't really start, and particularly living in India, you can't start throwing your weight around really that I'm great, this, that, and the other. Not that that's in my nature really anyway, because people just don't get that really. I think in the West there is, I think historically, yes, there has been a toxic kind of like industry, but I also believe that during the 80s and 90s, I think we worked in a, it was a very different industry. I think back then it was a lot more naive. I don't think everything was so organized and planned back then. And we worked as great teams. We got along together. We had great companionship, and we did amazing things really with not much back in those days. I think everything's so organized and structured, particularly in Western kitchens today, with this hierarchy system even more. Obviously, big hotels have always had a very strong hierarchy system. It's to a certain extent, I think they need where you've got many multiple outlets, I think. Um, but for me, I mean, I don't get involved in operations generally. I don't own a restaurant. I have no plans of owning restaurants. I'm very happy working with many different teams trying to create something and do something special. And without some camaraderie and a pat on the back and telling somebody that they've done a great job, then it's never going to happen, realistically.
Yeah, a pat on the back goes a long way. Arnisha, do we have any questions from the audience?
Hi, hi, Abdi.
Hi.
Yeah. So as of now, not yet, but we have one hands up. And when Ishani said, many thanks to the panelist and organizer. It's great to join such an interesting and enriching discussion. I would like to know from you, in the context of growing emphasis on plant protein consumption all over the world, how Bengal, especially Kolkata, is responding or adapting to it.
So we're talking about plant-based eating.
Yeah,
Plant,
Sounds
how
like
So,
it.
how
yeah.
Calcutta is adapting to it.
Yeah, so I mean, typically a Bengali each day will eat fish and rice as almost a staple. Really, it's kind of like it's part of the culture. But if you ask me personally, the best food in Bengal by by that overshadows anything is the vegetarian cuisine of Bengal. It's the most incredible, most delicious tasting food. The Bengalis don't talk about it. They kind of like almost dismiss it as something embarrassing. Um, but it's something that the Bengalis also eat every day at home, really. So I think there's always been this great mix in Bengal of the most incredible pure vegetarian food. There's this great kind of like story of widow's food, which is an awful story in many ways, where you became a widow, you had to shave your head, you lived a very pious life, you didn't eat non-veg beyond that time, not even fish. But the only positive thing about that was that there was this incredible vegetarian food that came out of that. The rest of it is an awful story otherwise. Um, but generally, I think if you speak to a general Bengali, if you expected them to eat a plant only based diet, I think they'd probably laugh at you and shun you a little bit and think you've gone mad.
But I also feel
As of
that
today.
there's a misconception that, um, it has to be something almost like a kind of a revolution that is only plant-based. I think moderation is very important. And India being
Yeah.
such a hot country, I grew up eating meat every meal, but that was only one dish on the table. Everything else was dal, sabzi, bharta, salad. Everything else was plant-based. So it's not that, this is the only thing that if you eat meat, that all your food is meat. That's never been the case. And I think that India is in a much better position, even though for those families that do eat meat, it's expensive. It's a hot country. You don't keep stuff and freeze it. You buy small portions. And we always had this tradition, look at the dhansag, where for the Parsis, they add something else, with so that it's meat and something that is plant based. We have saag gosht, we've got spinach with meat. There's never been this big tradition of just excessive meat consumption in India. And I think that, I this is the one thing that I'm less worried about. I think that there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Our traditional eating patterns, as long as we don't go into too much intense discussion on this, we traditionally eat less meat. Problem is in the West, where this is the only thing they will eat, and if they eat limited amount of, they consider potatoes a vegetable, and that's it. So that's the problem, that the plant consumption in the West is bad. I think in Bengal, you envy it.
But I think
I
there's an
love the
interesting.
banner of less bacon, more potatoes. I love that as the title of a book. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
But no, I think there's an interesting scenario here, actually. There was something I'd read recently. And there was this kind of like this vegetarian friend and his farmer friend. And his friend said to him, because of you bloody vegetarians, I'm selling like my life. I don't have barely any livestock to sell these days. And he was saying, but that's nothing to do with us vegetarians. It's just as of today, the British want to eat a pizza one day. They want to eat some Chinese food one day, which also has some rice. There'll be quite a lot of vegetables with a little bit of meat. People are eating more and more things like sushi, where again, there's a lot more of everything else with a little bit of fish. So people are just consuming, or over the last 20 years, have consumed less and less and less meat and fish products anyway, really, other than parts of America where obviously meat rules. But that was quite an interesting conversation, I thought, really, that actually in the UK, if you go back 30 years, the British eat much less meat than they ever ate, just because they like interesting flavors now. They want to explore a lot more world cuisine. They want to have a taco with some jackfruit in it,
Absolutely.
etc.
Time is running, but I want to give way to three audience members who have been patiently putting their hand up. And if I could be a bit harsh and say I will give each of you a minute to either ask a question or make a comment, and then I'll come back to you, Sean and Asma. I will take all three of you in succession, or your comments and questions. So and forgive me for mispronunciation of names. I'm known for them, so apologies in advance. But let's just start with Sarida.
Sridhar?
Srida, sorry, I knew I was going to make something wrong. Srida, would you mind coming off mute and
Sure. Am I audible?
yes, you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the panelists joining us today. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Asma, and thank you, Hassan. My name is Pari. You can call me Pari, and I have a background in climate action and a bit of global policy and applied statistics. So let me get to the thoughts and questions. Great talk so far. The question is around how much of, from your experiences, how much of the current political fragmentation and climate change induced disasters such as saltwater intrusion on agricultural fields and the likes of it has impacted the quality of seeds? And how do you think it's going to impact food security in the future?
Great question, Barry. I will take the other two questions, and then I will come to you, and I'll start with you, Asma, and then I'll come to you, Sean. Next person we have is Ferdous.
Oh.
I think we can hear you now, Ferdous.
Hello, my name is Firdaus, and my concern is
Firdaus.
chemistry. Yeah, Thank you. So one of the things that has been propagating in the media in India is that the meat eaters or the non-veg are the real devils. And there's been more kind of a propaganda in the market. But when we move out of India, and if you move to British culture, you will have the fish and chips and chicken and chips. So the diet habits are modified by, in a way, by the culture, and many cultures, like if you see in the Middle Eastern food, where I've stayed for quite a long time, you would see that they have a huge composition of non-veg in their dietary plans. And same is true for Pakistan. But if you come to India also, you will find in many places the vegetarian food is in vogue, is much used. So as climate activists, is there a balance between the food, because people have been eating non-veg food? Is it that the non-veg people are real devils? They are disturbing the environment by consuming the meat, which is halal in Islam and in many cultures, like in Christianity also. There's nothing wrong with that. What do you think, as an uh, analyst in this, should be the answer to this question?
Thank you, Ferdous.
You're welcome.
And then Shahbaz.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum salam.
I have a question about this topic.
Shabas, can you please repeat once?
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. This topic: how can policies and economic model be changed to ensure that nutrition and sustainability produce food is economically accessible to low-income population both locally and globally?
Thank you very much, Shahbaz. Now, if I put the first and third question, amalgamate them for you, Asma, and sort of the impact of some of those environmental changes on the quality of seeds, as Barry asked, and then now the economic model and the more accessibility of food for everyone, as our Shahbaz was saying. And then, Sean, I will throw to you the question about this discussion about vegetarian meat eaters and the different look at it. Now, Asma and both Sean, you will have each 2 minutes to make this very easy. You need a break. Okay, go ahead, Asma. Now, have you been put on mute? I think Asma has been put on mute.
Sure,
Arnisha.
I will. Yeah. Sorry for that. You can unmute now, Asma.
Yes, I've unmuted. So
Apology.
I think this is really interesting. The questions on damages to seed. I think it is. We need to really actually focus on these things, because with the kind of tend to kind of genetically modified seeds, and the fact that you have literally the top layer of soil is stripped of all its nutrients, and the fact that we're not saving our seeds, we are growing things like wheat, which takes so much more water than local ancient grains in India. There is a problem with how we are. Seeds is a very important conversation. It's almost the most important pivotal conversation we need to have. We are not having this. The damage from salt, damage from pollution, and most importantly, the fact that we are tending to only eat few things. So all the kind of variety that used to grow, that would not strip the land of all its nutrients. We are intensively farming by pumping fertilizers into the land, a limited amount of seeds. We are running the risk of losing all our heritage. In a century, they will not even know what these things look like, because we are losing them. So this is a very important question, and about how you make food accessible at a price point for the poor as well, which is of in high nutritional value. I am very uncomfortable, especially in England. There's this whole discussion about how badly the poor eat. that they spend £1 on a frozen meal, which is full of starch and processed carbohydrates. And I can tell you one thing, as a mother of children, if my children had to eat that, I would give that to them. I would not let them go to sleep hungry. The whole attitude that you look down on the poor for eating food that is of low nutritional value, it is absolute arrogance. If they cannot afford to eat high quality fruits and vegetables, it is inaccessible. Yet a huge amount of these fruit and vegetables is being buried because the pear is not perfect. The cucumber is not looking nice, and we are throwing away our food. It is really a broken system. And the problem is that if you expect the poor to be able to find money out of their limited resources, because this is high nutritional value, I can tell you one thing. I am not a hypocrite. I would rather that my children had a full tummy and went to sleep so that they would not wake up hungry in the middle of the night. So this hypocrisy we don't talk about. So I think that is the real challenge.
Absolutely. There is a lot of privilege with accessing nutrition as fresh food. It's not as
Yes.
easy and as accessible as people sometimes make it to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean,
I
you
think one
already
of the
touched on, go ahead, carry on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the problems in the UK is that people just don't buy fresh food anymore. Really, also that's another problem. I mean, if you go to a supermarket, there's ample amount of good fresh fruits and vegetables, etc. But people would rather use something that's either already cut for them, that's 3 times the price, or already peeled. And whenever I go to the UK, people are complaining about, oh, it's so expensive to live, but their cupboards are full of processed foods. So I think there's kind of like a bit of a catch-22 situation happening there. Really, if people bought fresh food and cooked fresh food and ate fresh food, then it doesn't have to work out so expensive if you're adding a side of rice and a side of potatoes, etc.
But people
I
don't know
mean,
how to
and
cook anymore
now
because they stopped
I
that
think that's the
in
problem
school.
there.
Yeah, in school they've stopped home economics and teaching kids how to cook. It's
So
almost
I'm
as if
so
unfashionable to be cooking
so
at
I,
home, and
yeah.
people don't.
So I'm forever saying to friends in India that obviously we're still at a very nascent stage of letting the West in lots of ways. The West is creeping in. What the American system creeps in, and eventually you're stuck with it, really. Um, but in India, it's still very early on. And most people eat a fresh meal because it's the easiest way. There's still a grandmother cooking at home or a mother. If you have extra money, then you have a cook cooking a fresh meal with fresh fruits and vegetables and fresh meat, etc. So, but yes, supermarkets are creeping in, but it's still very slow, and there's still a lot of kind of like people anti it as well as of today. And I keep saying we need to, for in the Indian context, we need to really keep aggressively pushing that and keeping it away for as long as it can until eventually the American system does creep in, unfortunately, and you're stuck with it.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I will I want to ask you Shabaz's question because I think you touched on it with that lovely story, the conversation between the farmer and the vegetarian. Now, my last question, which is inspired by one of my colleagues in the chat section, Elinka, and also about the conversations that we've been having about food waste. If you could challenge everyone watching to do one small thing this week to waste less food, what would your challenge be? What would be one small change that you would like us to go away with and try to reduce food waste? And I'll give you a minute each, and we'll start with you, Sean.
So can I just quickly come back to that question about vegetarian versus like the thing that we didn't answer actually? So I think the last thing I read is that so obviously Indians are eating more and more meat protein every year. Actually, that's just a fact. Meat consumption in India is growing year on year. I think as of today, there's about 35% vegetarian population in the country as a population. So I don't really, I mean, I'm not getting into politics, but there's definitely a lot of propaganda which isn't necessarily 100% true, really. Most of my vegetarian friends are eating eggs these days, they're eating chicken because they know that protein is good for them. So that's a very, like I say, I'm not going to get into the politics. It's not really for me to get into that. But I don't think it's as simple as it sounds. Sorry, what was the other question? I just thought I had to answer that because it
No,
does
no,
nag me a
absolutely.
bit. And
One thing
even
that
I've stopped writing recipes. I mean, I used to write so many recipes for newspapers, magazines. And I write less and less that are non-vegetarian these days because I used to get trolled quite a lot myself.
yeah, the one thing or the one tip that you'll give everyone on the call and will be watching this to reduce food wastage. And you've got it for less now. You've got 30 seconds, Shaun.
So I think for me, I mean, like I said, I cook every day at home whenever I'm in Calcutta. I go to the market, I pick up whatever fresh vegetables are available, and they're changing throughout the year. Um, I rarely peel vegetables when I'm cooking at home. I just give everything a good wash, chop things up, throw some olive oil on them, some garlic, salt and pepper, put them in my oven. Um, and I think even at that basic level of just using whatever is local, using every part of that ingredient without even skinning or peeling things, which is completely unnecessary most of the time if you're cooking at home. Uh, if you buy a chicken, eat every last part of it. Very simple, really.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Asma, we started with you. We'll end with you. Your top tip for reducing food waste.
Well, I think that every culture there is a recipe for using leftover bread from the night before. Think about what is in your heritage. Every tradition has that, leftover vegetables. Start off with leftovers. Do not throw them away. Find ways to use it. And also, chutneys are great. Whatever you have, put them all together, cook them down, add dried, red chilies, garlic, ginger, and cook it down, add jaggery to it or some sweetness or honey. You have that chutney, you can have it on cheese and toast. But anything that you have, you can put together and cook it down. And I think that that's just, and also try and think of all the old recipes that your grandmothers had. We always had these, recipes that we made with things that were left over. We've forgotten that. We become consumers and it's like, one use only. Just use once and out. No, our food can be reused. There are so many ways to use leftovers.
Absolutely, grandmothers know best always. Thank you very much to you, Asma and Shaun, for sharing your experiences, your insight, and thanks to everyone who joined us. This has been a fantastic, informative, and also enjoyable conversation for me as a foodie. I'll say a couple of things before I put it back to Neeti. Please, everyone who is joining us today and will be watching this, please take a moment to explore the British Council Digital Library, look at the Food Sustainability Collection, look and definitely go and download Monsoon, and perhaps somewhere this weekend you can try the curry omelette as one of the top recipes that was recommended by our chef Asma. What I will end with myself is let's to take what we've heard here today and turn it into action, one meal, one story, and one mindful choice at a time. Thank you very much, and over to you, Neeti.
Right. Thank you. I think it was an interesting and a useful discussion we had today. Very useful. And I think everybody in the audience found it useful. And we had approximately 50 participants who joined the discussions today. But yes, it will be shared with all, say, approximately 1,000 people who signed up for the event. Some of them couldn't join in because of the time differences and staying in various across the globe. So yes, thank you everyone for joining us today and look forward to more sessions. But there are some book lists that Arnisha has shared in the chat, which would be useful to go through and find more on the collection in the digital library on food. Yes,
And I
Abdi, do
do
you
hope,
have some?
Neeti, yeah, I was just going to say that Shaun mentioned that he's got a book coming, so I do hope we will repeat this and
Yes.
talk about your new book and hear some of those stories.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Thank you. Thank you,
Fantastic.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Have
you.
a great
Thank you,
weekend.
everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much,
Bye.
Asma and Shaun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abdi. Thanks, Sean.
You.
Bye. Thanks.
Mm.